Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. Today is Wednesday, and on Wednesdays, I answer your questions that you asked me last week. So, if you have a question and you want it answered next week, put it in the comments below. And I'll give your channel a shout out and I'll answer your questions. So that is always fun. So, without further ado, let's get into the questions. Brian Combe asked, with the upcoming Black Adam movie, were you aware of Shazam, Black Adam, the Marvel Family content in the New 52 Justice League series that started in 2011? Yes, I was actually. And believe it or not, I have those books on order. I ordered a bunch of those things. I'm just waiting for them to arrive. So I can't show them in this video. But I will answer your question. I felt that even beyond the cool Shazam backup stories, the series was pretty great. I was wondering if you had those books, and if so, if you thought the stories might be, in your opinion, on their spec, thought of the stories and maybe your opinion about their spec value. Best keys, goodbyes right now. Believe it or not, all of them are pretty affordable. So there's about 3 books that I'd highly recommend from the new 252 series from 2011. It'd be Justice League 21, which is the first Shazam family. So that's kind of a key. Justice League 0, and it just has a really great Shazam cover. So that's why. And Justice League 7.4. Now, Justice League 7.4 is the first Black Adam. It's also it's sort of like a title where it says Justice League 7.4, but it also has it scratched out with Black Adam #1. So in a weird way, it's kind of like Black Adam #1. There's an earlier series from 2007 with Black Adam, but it's kind of like the second series. So that's another one that I would say is a reasonable spec. And it has a great lenticular cover that with Black Adam. So that's always cool. Okay, so those would be the ones that I would spec from the New 52. I haven't read the series, so I'm not super familiar with it, but it's one of those things where once I get the books, then I read them online. So I'm going to show you a couple other Black Adam specs that I would say are good ones, depending on your budget. Obviously, Black Adam's first appearance. I just like showing this book. This is my excuse to show this book. I love this book. This is Black Adam's first appearance, but it's also his only Golden Age appearance. So he was kind of a one and done kind of character in the Golden Age. And he didn't really reappear until much later. Now, there is a book, Alter Ego number 10, which is not in continuity. It's not an official book. It's like kind of a fanzine that has the first Black Adam cover. But I don't really consider that the first Black Adam cover, and that's from the Silver Age, because it isn't part, it's not official. Anyone could draw Black Adam and put it on a book, but it doesn't really make it official. So the first official Black Adam cover is in this book, Shazam #8. And this is from 1973. So this is actually the first time that Shazam appears in the modern age, or beyond the Golden Age. This is the Bronze Age. So many years later, he appeared in this book. And this is the first time that the Black Adam appeared in DC. So this is a major key, but it's a reprint. So Black Adam, is he on the cover? Actually, believe it or not, he's not on the cover. So I made a mistake there. It's the later one where he's on the cover. But this is the first time Black Adam appears in DC. And it's the reprint of that other book. Now, Black Adam, I always forget the number. And you're going to correct me in the comments. I always get it mixed up. I think it's 27 or it's 29. I always get the numbers mixed up where he's kind of zooming up and he's on the cover. Now, that's the one that everybody's been chasing. But that's why I think this one is a better spec, because it is that first appearance in DC. So that's an aside. Okay, As I said, the three books for the New 52 that you might want to consider getting would be Justice League 21 and Justice League 0 and Justice League 7.4. So those three books. Okay, next question is what is, see, this is non-comic related. It's from Shane Paul, and he asks, what is your favorite vacation spot in Canada? Do you have a favorite place to visit in America? Well, I'm actually from the east coast of Canada. So if I was going to go on a vacation, I'd probably go back home. So Cape Breton, where I'm from, is actually one of the most beautiful places in the world. And it's actually in National Geographic. They kind of, I can give you a bit of a story there. There's a bit of history, but National Geographic always ranks it as in the top 10 in the world of places to visit for just the sheer beauty of the place. And I would recommend visiting Cape Breton in terms of Canada because the people are very nice. they're like so easygoing, and you meet them for the first time and they'll invite you to their house and you can stay over if you want. At that level, it's just like very down to earth, really nice people. And there's a lot of cool things to do if you're visiting. It's kind of a place that growing up, it's a good place growing up, but as an adult, you kind of want to leave because there's not much to do as an adult. But there's a lot of stuff for tourists to do, where you can go to like Louisbourg, which is kind of like this cool old fort. It's massive. It's like this huge reconstruction of a French fort. And there's like, and if you go to like, what's it called? Bedeck. You can see like the Grand Bell Museum, and that's why National Geographic. So Graham Bell, he married the woman who was the granddaughter or daughter of the one that started National Geographic. So they are a little bit biased when it comes to Cape Breton because Alexander Graham Bell, he lived in Cape Breton. So he had this beautiful home in Cape Breton. And they built like this museum dedicated to his achievements. Actually, he made his first phone call in Cape Breton. So that was kind of a cool thing. And there's like a whole bunch of really cool things to do in Cape Breton. I'm a big sailor, so you can go sailing. There's just so many things you can do in Cape Breton. And there's like the Highland, what's it called? I should really remember. Like the Highland Drive, basically where you drive through the highlands of Cape Breton and you see all these beautiful hills and valleys and stuff. It's a really nice place to visit. I highly recommend it. And you can stop in and say hi to my parents or something. So that's one of the places that I recommend in Canada. In the US, so the second part of the question, and do you have a favorite place to visit in America? Yes, I do in a way. Actually, I have two. The first one being Florida. And I just love going to Florida because it's warm. So as a Canadian, that's sort of a typical thing. So you know how the birds always fly south for the winter? Well, Canadians do the same thing. When it gets cold, the first place we go to is Florida. So if you go to Florida in like March like time period, it seems like it's mostly Canadians there. It's sort of like where we go to escape the cold of the Canadian winter. So as a kid, I'd always go to Disney World and kind of that kind of thing as a kid. So I have a very strong connection to Florida, and my parents have a house in Florida, so I like visiting once a year. So so that's my first place. I also like visiting New York. I really like visiting New York because I find it's kind of like a whole nation on itself. It's like New York, it's like almost, it has its own like border in terms of the way people think. I always found that really interesting about New York, that when I lived in New York for about a month. I spent like a lot of time there, and it was really useful when I was collecting my Warren magazines because so many places you can find people that have like pieces of the Warren collection. So New York is just really interesting in the respect that people there, they almost they'll know everything about New York, but the outside world is like the outside world. It's like a very bubble kind of orientated mentality. It's very interesting. I found New York very, very interesting place. So great place for a comic like shopping as well. That's why I really like it. Okay. Next question is from Lance Jamal. What are the 10 most important or your favorite Golden Age prototypes? So I kind of wanted to show these books. So I didn't come up with 10. I was like trying to. Actually, there was one that I have to find, but I think it's buried, which is Mad number 5, which is the first prototype of King Kong. So I was going to show that. That's a Golden Age book. But I couldn't find it. So it's buried. I was being a little bit lazy in terms of digging it out because it's like buried behind like slabs and then books, and then it's just like really deeply buried. But I brought some other cool things and some that people won't even know about. These are ones that are really weird that people won't know about. So these are prototype books. So what is a prototype book? First of all, for those who don't know, a prototype is a character that is developed. Maybe it's a one-shot story, and that character is kind of like an experience, a taste of what the character could be. Maybe they'll use it, maybe they don't. And then generally, because they don't use it, they take it and say learn from it, and then they build a character that becomes like a long-standing character. And I'll give you an example that will kind of highlight this. A really great example of that, and I have to find it, is this. Oh, one sec here. Yeah, this one. I have like so many books prepared for this. Okay, so Amazing Adventures number 1. Now this is not Golden Age. So if people start saying, hey, that's not Golden Age, you're right, it's not Golden Age. You can tell it's not Golden Age because it's from 1961, not Golden Age. But this is an example of a prototype character. So this is the first appearance of Dr. Droom. And Dr. Droom is basically Doctor Strange. So what happened was Doctor Strange, when they created Doctor Strange, basically they asked Stan Lee, I believe it's, Stan Lee, to create a new character and like a wizardy kind of character. And basically he just ripped off his own story from Amazing Adventures number 1, and he just rewrote it basically and changed the name from Dr. Droom to Doctor Strange. So if you read this story, it's basically the same as the movie almost, like for Doctor Strange, where he goes through the trials. And, well, it's a little bit different in terms of what trials, but he goes through a series of trials, and then he becomes the Sorcerer Supreme. Okay, that's kind of the narrative of this story. So very interesting prototype character. So this is an example of a prototype. Now, I'm going to show you a character that actually is kind of interesting. That most people won't realize that this is a prototype. And it's one of those ones where it's kind of on the cusp of the golden / silver age. And it's this one, Black Hawk number 117. And you'll notice that you got this guy with like this freeze ray, and he's frozen some people over here. And there's Black Hawk. And we got Mr. Freeze. It even says Mr. Freeze, okay? So this book actually is the first in DC to feature a character called Mr. Freeze. And you can see, he looks almost like the Mr. Freeze that we know. And so the funny thing is, this is the first version of him. And this is kind of in that Golden Age, Silver Age era. But then they decided to, like, bring back the character. And this is, this is 1959, so very beginning of the Silver Age. And then so you see him here, he's a little bit different. And they renamed him Mr. Zero. So it's a different character, kind of, very different, but they called him Mr. Zero. And then they were like, they actually kind of came back to the name, and they thought about it again. And then renamed him again. So he went from Mr. Freeze to Mr. Zero back to Mr. Freeze again. So he gets renamed Mr. Freeze in this book, which is Detective Comics 373. So this is kind of a cool key if you're a Mr. Freeze collector. And I'm a big Mr. Freeze fan because I liked Batman Adventures, the TV series. And I just thought his story really was my favorite from that series. I thought it was really romantic and brilliant, just really sad and kind of like you really feel for the character. So I really like that story. So this is Detective Comics 373, where he gets the name Mr. Freeze again. So there's like a few books that kind of bring out that character. Now, I want to show one more just because I didn't really have that many Golden Age prototype characters. But this is a really great one. And this is one that I actually almost wanted to do a full video just on this character. And it's this one. This is kind of interesting. It's kind of one of those weird situations where we got a prototype character. It's called, she's called Supergirl. And this is from 1949, Golden Age book. And she's even named on the cover. In this issue, Superboy meets Supergirl. So they actually call her Supergirl. She's Supergirl. But yet, this is not considered the first appearance of Supergirl. This is considered the first prototype. So, first Supergirl prototype. And what's her name? Queen Lucy. Okay, so that's the first Supergirl prototype. Okay, but the funny thing is they weren't quite happy with this character, so then they redid it again, and we got another prototype for Supergirl, and that's this book. A lot of people will go after this book. They don't know about the other one. So that was Superboy number 5, and this is Superman number 123, and this is the second prototype of Supergirl. And it will say Supergirl tryout. See, that's, it's like the weird language that they use. Superboy returns to Krypton. So she's actually from, I think she dies in this. I'm not sure. I haven't read it recently. But yeah, so this is another attempt at Supergirl. A different one. So they keep on bringing back these Supergirls. And then we know her first appearance is in Action Comics 252. This is the first actual Supergirl. So this is not Golden Age. This is from 1959. So that's kind of it's a weird one for Supergirl. It kind of goes through all these different iterations. Now, one more prototype from the Golden Age that I have. I don't have that many. And I'm not even sure if people consider this a prototype. It's one of those ones that's debatable if it's a prototype. Because, it's a character that is kind of cool, but was only used limited in the Golden Age. Really just this one book. This is Batman 49. And this is the first appearance of the Mad Hatter. Now, there's actually a later version of the Mad Hatter. And it's actually got a really cool cover. It's like him on the cover, and it's like a whole bunch of hats in the background. And that book is a new version of the Mad Hatter. But this is really the first appearance of the Mad Hatter, kind of a prototype because it's a different name that they use for the person that becomes the Mad Hatter. So it's one of those iffy ones, not truly a prototype, but it's just, if you like the Mad Hatter, this is his first appearance, kind of. It's not the same character, but Mad Hatter. Okay, so those are the only prototypes that I could think of that I have in my collection. I like showing stuff that I have in my collection. There's a lot of Golden Age prototypes that I don't have. A really cool one that I've been chasing after is Bloodshot, his prototype. And that's actually kind of a cool sci-fi cover that I always wanted, that one. So yeah, so those are my prototype ones. Okay, so last question. is from Troy Percy. Hi, Alan. I would like to get your opinion on digital comics. Do you like the idea? And have you read any? Thanks. Um, I'm a big fan of digital comics, actually. So I actually I'm weird. I feel like I'm at that cusp in terms of embracing digital versus paper. Because with me, I really love to have the actual physical copy of any book. Like, if I like the book, like sometimes I'll read it first in the digital format and say, hey, that's a really great book. I have to have a copy of it. So I'll go and buy it afterwards. So for me, I like reading the comics in the digital format because you can zoom in, you can kind of manipulate it whatever way you want. Especially now, my eyesight is I'm getting old. My eyesight is such that I can't read comic books as well as I could without maybe taking off my contacts and reading it. So I'm at that point where I'm almost like at bifocal level. I feel so old. Okay, so so it's like digital makes it much easier to read, and so I do enjoy digital comics. However, I do like having the physical copy as well. So that's kind of been my opinion on it. And if you get into the NFT part of digital, like I'm not a fan of that. So I one of the things that happens with digital is they're trying to create this like establish digital comics like through NFTs as like some kind of tangible thing. And I'm not there in terms of embracing that. So the reason being, often I find why not just get the real tangible thing? Like I understand NFTs and I do appreciate it, but I'm not there in terms of I don't really feel like it's that that valuable. I don't see the value. Whereas on a physical copy, because it has like a print age and stuff like that, I feel like it's a lot more justified in the value that it has. So on that side of the digital question, I would be kind of, against it. Because I just feel like, well, anyone can just download it or copy it. So what's the point? There's no real, you can say, hey, I own this, but it doesn't really have much merit. So that's my feelings about the NFTs. In terms of reading comics online, I read them all the time. I pretty much on a daily basis, I'm reading some comics online. So yeah, and I prefer that because I don't like damaging my actual physical copies. I sometimes read my physical books, but if they're in a mid grade, I'll do it. I'll because there's nothing that is going to go up or down. I'm not going to mangle it. I'm pretty careful when I read my books. So that is kind of this Q&A. If you have any questions for me, please leave a comment below. I was kind of a little bit of a rant towards the end there. So yeah, just leave your feedback below. I always appreciate people's questions. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. Bye for now.